Why aren't kickers and punters respected, especially in the Hall of Fame? How many kickers, how many punters have been elected into the Hall of Fame? This is a big problem because I understand there's a board that votes these guys in, but there are plenty of good kickers and even good punters that were never well respected throughout the league for years. And I don't understand it. Could you give us a reason why there are not too many punters and kickers in the Hall of Fame?
Okay, so there's three kickers. There's George Blanda,
Right.
and there's Jan Stenerud and Morten Andersen, who I play with at the Vikings. All well-deserving. There's plenty of other well-deserving kickers that should be in there. Gary Anderson is an example. And there's only one punter. That's Ray Guy. And so I was made to know when I first got here, I came in feeling like I had a job to do. No one else on the team could do my job, and I couldn't do anyone else's job at that elite level. And so one of my first Super Bowls, I was working with a guy named Pete Abertante, who was running the international side of the NFL. He introduced me to some of the NFL players, and they're like, "Man, are you Australian?" I said, "Yeah." And they go, "Oh, and you play in the league?" I go, "I do." And they go, "Ah, so what position do you play?" And I'm 6'5", so they're thinking tight end or something like that. And I said, "I'm a punter." And they all looked at each other and they looked back at me and they went, "Man, you're not even a real football player." And unfortunately, when it comes to voting in the Hall of Fame, they still have that attitude. There's a bunch of old guys who go, "Punters are not even part of the team, so why the hell would we vote for one of those guys?" And so, until those guys disappear and other people start to vote that have more respect for the field position part of the game, and honestly, the head coach here at Tulsa said to me straight up, "We're going to score touchdowns." And I go, "Yeah, that's great. Until you get backed up on the 1 yard line, who's going to punt that ball?" So, everyone has their position in this game, and punters have that position. I think there's been a massive disrespect over the years, but that's part of why we should go and make tackles when we need to make tackles. That's where we shouldn't punt the ball in the end zone when we're just outside field goal range, and that gives you respect within your football team, saying, "Hey, he's sacrificing his body and he's sacrificing yardage and average. He's not worried about that. He's worried about us winning football games. And he'd rather punt the ball to the 10 than punt the ball in the end zone and take the extra 10 yards." And that's the only way you can do it is to earn that respect. And hopefully, down the track, someone will notice.
So what about the rules that have been changed recently with these special teams? Kickoffs, onside kicks have been a big talking point of that. Some of the weird rule changes, onside kicks have gotten a lot harder because of that. Do you think they have to be changed? And what would you do if you were commissioner and rule committee?
Yeah, look, actually, I think what they're doing in the XFL is sort of taking punting and kicking out of the game a little bit, but it's also making it safer. I love the fact that they're experimenting with that 20-yard line kickoff rule where the guys have to stand 5-6 yards apart, and you don't, because they've taken the crackback block out of the game, and rightfully so. There's a lot of guys that had their bell rung on a reverse punt or a reverse kickoff situation, and you don't need to do that in the game and still have the game be spectacular. And so I think what they will do is partner up with the USFL or the XFL, and they'll keep throwing these different rule changes in, and then a couple of years later you'll see them instituted in the NFL. And I think that's actually a good thing. There's people that always talk about eliminating punting from the game, and which I think's crap. I just think, we all, like I said earlier, we all have our position. There's great plays in the game, and there's nothing more exciting than a punt return for a touchdown or a kickoff return for a touchdown, and it excites the sideline as well as the fans. And so I think it's an important part of the game. But I also think, with head injuries and stuff they've been over the last few years, I understand why they make that part of the game a little bit safer, because running 60 yards and smashing your head into someone else is not a great way to make a living.